You do everything you're supposed to do. You are kind. You are responsible. You work hard. So why do you feel this constant, low-grade anxiety? This hollow ache of exhaustion that sleep never seems to touch? You've likely searched for the answer inside yourself. You start to believe the problem is you, that you are somehow broken, not strong enough, not resilient enough. But what if you have been looking in the wrong place entirely? Carl Jung, in his deep exploration of the human soul, discovered a truth that will change the way you see your own struggle. He found that the most profound source of our suffering is often not our personal weakness, it is our psychological location. He realized there are invisible environments, mental prisons, that we can live inside for years, even decades, without ever knowing we are captive. These places look like normal life. They look like a loving family, a successful career, a peaceful home. But they operate on a silent, toxic code that is designed to systematically drain your life force. They are engineered to make you feel that you are the problem. Today, we step outside of yourself and become the architect of your inner world. We will not fix you, because you are not broken. Instead, we will reveal the invisible architecture that has been silently shaping your reality. We will name the 7 dangerous mental prisons that Jung found were responsible for destroying the minds of even the strongest souls. And most importantly, we will hand you the key to unlock your own cage. This video is for the person who is tired of trying to fix an inside that isn't broken. It's time to stop blaming yourself for being exhausted and start redrawing the map of your world. To begin this journey of liberation, I invite you to make a quiet commitment. Write in the comments below, "I am ready to see the walls." Before we name these 7 prisons, you must understand a fundamental law of the psyche. Your environment is not just the world outside of you. It is a force that actively shapes the world inside of you. And certain psychological environments, as Jung discovered, are not neutral. They have their own invisible physics, their own toxic atmosphere. They are designed, almost intelligently, to rewire your brain to work against you. They slowly convince you that your exhaustion is your fault, that your anxiety is a personal defect, that your feeling of being trapped is just in your head. It is not. It is a location. And today, we will give that location a name. There are 7 of these dangerous places that Jung identified. The echo chamber, where your own thoughts are reflected back to you until you can no longer think for yourself. The comparison arena, where your worth is measured only by the success of others. The chaos storm, where constant external noise drowns out your inner voice. And the shadow basement, which we will return to, for it is the most important of all. But for the kind person, the caregiver, the one who is always trying to do the right thing, there are 3 prisons you are most likely living in right now. 3 places that feel so much like normal life, you may not even realize you are behind bars. The first, and perhaps most common, is the performance theater. It is a place with one simple, brutal rule. Your authenticity will be punished. Your mask will be rewarded. Let's imagine Chloe. She's a nurse, 35 years old. She loves her work, but she is bone tired. She walks into the hospital break room. She feels a cold dread in her stomach because she just dealt with a difficult patient. She wants to sit in silence. She needs to sit in silence. But a colleague starts complaining about their day. The rules of the performance theater immediately activate. Her authentic self, the tired, overwhelmed woman, is pushed down. The mask, the persona, of the cheerful, supportive friend is put on. She smiles. She nods. She offers comforting words. Her colleague walks away feeling better. Chloe walks away feeling hollow. Have you ever been in that room? The meeting where you swallow your brilliant idea because it might cause conflict? The family gathering where you pretend to agree with an opinion that makes your skin crawl? The conversation where you say, "I'm fine," when every cell in your body is screaming? That is the performance theater. And the price of admission is a small piece of your soul paid out every single day. This is not kindness. It is a transaction where you trade your inner truth for outer approval. And the exhaustion you feel is the tax on that transaction. But for many of us, this performance doesn't end when we clock out. We bring it home. And that is when we enter the second prison, the silent suffering space. This is a place that looks, on the surface, like peace. But it is a brittle, fragile peace maintained by one thing: the collective unspoken agreement to never talk about what is actually happening. It is the family that never discusses the tension between siblings, the marriage that never addresses the growing distance, the friendship that papers over a deep betrayal with polite small talk. In these spaces, your role as the empath is to become the emotional shock absorber. You are expected to sense the unspoken pain, the resentment, the sadness, and then silently manage it. You soothe egos. You mediate conflicts that are never acknowledged. You hold the emotional stability of the entire system on your shoulders. But there is a terrifying rule in the silent suffering space. The person who finally names the problem becomes the problem. If you dare to say, "I feel like we're not connecting anymore," you are accused of being needy. If you say, "I feel a lot of anger in this room," you are accused of starting a fight. Your perception is framed as a pathology, and so you learn to stay quiet. You suffer in silence to keep a peace that is slowly killing you. You are not just tired. You are experiencing a kind of emotional starvation. You give and give and give into a system that offers no real nourishment in return. And when you live long enough in the theater and the silent space, when you have spent years performing a role that is not you and swallowing feelings that are, you eventually find yourself in the third and perhaps most tragic prison of all, the self-abandonment chamber. This place has no external walls. The bars are forged from your own choices. It is a space you enter moment by moment, every time you betray yourself. Every time you say yes when your body is screaming no. Every time you ignore that gut feeling, that intuition telling you something is wrong. Every time you put someone else's comfort ahead of your own safety. You are not just ignoring your needs. You are actively learning to distrust your own inner guidance system. You abandon yourself over and over until one day you wake up and realize you have become a stranger in your own life. You look in the mirror and you do not recognize the person staring back. You no longer know what you like, what you want, what brings you joy. Your soul's voice has become so quiet, you are not even sure it is still there. This is the end stage of living for others. It is what Jung called a loss of soul, the profound disorienting emptiness that comes from having given all your energy away. The performance theater, the silent suffering space, the self-abandonment chamber. 3 locations, 3 invisible prisons. They are the source of your anxiety. They are the reason for your exhaustion. But these prisons, these intricate structures of pain, they weren't built by accident. They were built for a reason. They were built to contain something. Something so powerful, you were taught to fear its very existence. And to find the key to your freedom, we must first understand what is being kept locked away deep in the 7th most secret place, the shadow basement. But these prisons, they do not spring from nowhere. They are not random acts of misfortune. They are sophisticated containment systems. And so the question we must ask is not just what are these prisons, but what are they designed to hold? This is where we descend into the heart of Carl Jung's work, into the seventh most foundational space, the shadow basement. The shadow, as Jung defined it, is the unconscious repository for every part of ourselves we were taught was unacceptable. It is the home of our disowned anger, our forbidden desires, our inconvenient needs, our raw, untamed power. It is not evil, it is simply real. And for the person conditioned to be nice, the shadow basement becomes a very crowded place. Now, here is the crucial connection that changes everything. The other 6 psychological prisons we've discussed, they are not separate from the shadow. They are the very walls of the shadow's containment cell. They are the architecture of your self-suppression. Think about it. Every time you put on the mask in the performance theater, every time you choose agreeableness over your truth, where does that authentic, unexpressed part of you go? It is thrown into the shadow basement. Every time you swallow your anger in the silent suffering space, every time you absorb the tension to keep a false peace, where does that powerful, righteous energy go? It is locked away in the shadow basement. Every time you ignore your own needs in the self-abandonment chamber, every time you say it's fine when it is not fine, where does that vital life force, that sacred self-regard go? It is exiled to the shadow basement. Your entire way of being in the world has been an elaborate, exhausting, lifelong project of building and reinforcing this prison. You are not just building a persona, you are building a dungeon beneath it. And the exhaustion you feel is the psychic cost of maintaining this entire structure. It is the energy required to keep the prisoners from escaping. Let's return to Chloe, our nurse. Growing up, she was the peacemaker in a tense family. Her authentic self, a vibrant, expressive child, learned very quickly that her needs were too much, and her anger was disruptive. So she threw those parts of herself into the shadow basement. She built the persona of the good, easy daughter. That was her performance theater. The family rule was to never discuss the tension. That was her silent suffering space. Over time, she became so good at ignoring her own needs that she no longer even knew what they were. That was her self-abandonment chamber. Now, as an adult, she is living in the prison she built as a child. But the prisoners are getting restless. The disowned anger is no longer silent. It leaks out as passive aggression, as sharp judgments, as sudden, inexplicable bursts of rage over small things like someone cutting her off in traffic. The unmet needs are no longer quiet. They manifest as that deep, hollow ache of exhaustion, as a feeling of emptiness and meaninglessness. The raw, untamed power is no longer dormant. It creates a constant, low-grade anxiety, a feeling of being a fraud because some deep part of her knows, this is not who I am. This is the central, liberating insight of shadow work. The difficult, dark parts of you that you have been suppressing are not the problem. The suppression itself is the problem. The energy you are spending to keep yourself divided is the source of your suffering. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the exiled part of your own kingdom, and it holds the very qualities you now desperately need to find your freedom. It holds your ability to say no. It holds your anger, which is the engine of healthy boundaries. It holds your personal desires, which are the compass to a meaningful life. It holds your raw power, which is the fuel for your own becoming. So when we talk about escaping these 7 psychological places, We are not talking about running away. We are talking about a rescue mission, a journey downward, into the basement you have so carefully guarded, to meet the parts of yourself you were forced to lock away, to listen to their stories, to integrate their wisdom, and to finally set them free. This is why traditional self-help often fails the nice person. You cannot layer positive affirmations on top of a divided soul. You cannot think your way out of a prison whose walls are built from disowned emotion. The only way out is through the shadow basement, because that is where the keys have been kept all along. The journey downward is not about becoming a dark person. It is about becoming a whole person, a person who has access to their full range of human experience, the light and the dark, the agreeable and the angry, the selfless and the sovereign. And this is the promise. When you stop spending all your energy guarding the prison, that energy becomes available to you. It becomes the fuel for a new life, a life that is not based on performance, but on presence, not on silent suffering, but on authentic connection, not on self-abandonment, but on a deep, unwavering loyalty to your own soul. But how do we begin this rescue mission safely? How do we approach the shadow basement not as a trespasser, but as a liberator? That is the art and science of the escape protocol, the practical tools to begin the work of taking down the walls one conscious choice at a time.
So how do we begin? How do we stage a prison break from a prison we cannot see? The journey out is not a single dramatic act of rebellion. It is a quiet revolution, fought with small, consistent choices. Jung called this process individuation. I call it the regeneration protocol. It is a systematic way to stop feeding the prisons and start nourishing your soul. It is the practical, step-by-step path from exhaustion to sovereignty. The first step is a simple act of awareness, the environmental audit. You cannot escape a prison until you realize you are in one. For the next week, I invite you to become a gentle observer of your own life. Carry this question with you, not as a judgment, but as a compass. After this interaction, do I feel more energized or more drained? Notice how you feel after your morning meeting at work. Notice how you feel after a phone call with your mother. Notice how you feel after scrolling through social media. Your body is the most honest truth teller you have. It does not lie. That feeling of being drained, that is the data. That is your soul telling you, this place is costly for us. You don't need to do anything about it yet. The goal of the audit is not to create a list of enemies. It is simply to draw the map, to make the invisible visible. This is the first essential step of all shadow work. Once you have the map, you can begin the second step, strategic withdrawal. This is where we begin to plug the energy leaks. And this is where the fear arises for the people pleaser. The fear that to withdraw is to be selfish, to be cruel. But we are not talking about building a wall. We are talking about installing a gate that you and only you have the key to. Let's go back to Chloe, our nurse. Through her audit, she realized that the hospital break room, the performance theater, was one of her biggest energy drains. The old Chloe believed she had to be available to everyone all the time. The new Chloe, the one practicing strategic withdrawal, makes a tiny change. She decides to take the first 5 minutes of her lunch break alone. She goes to her car. She doesn't scroll on her phone. She just sits. She breathes. This is not a dramatic confrontation. It is a quiet, radical act of self-loyalty. She is withdrawing her energy strategically for just 5 minutes to create a space for herself. What is one small strategic withdrawal you can make this week? Can you let a phone call go to voicemail? Can you say, "Let me think about it," instead of an immediate yes? Can you leave a party 15 minutes earlier than you normally would? These are not selfish acts. They are acts of conservation. You are treating your energy as the precious, finite resource it is. This leads us to the third and most transformative step: conscious integration and inner listening. This is the heart of the rescue mission into the shadow basement. As you create more space through withdrawal, you will start to hear the whispers from the prisoners you locked away, the anger, the needs, the desires. Your job is not to silence them again. It is to listen. I invite you to try a 2-minute practice. I call it the inner check-in. Once a day, set a timer for 2 minutes. Close your eyes, put a hand on your heart, and ask this simple question to your inner world: what do you need from me right now? Then just listen. The first few times, you might hear nothing but the anxious chatter of your mind. That's okay. But eventually, a different voice will emerge. A quieter, deeper voice. It might say, "I need rest." It might say, "I am angry about what was said this morning." It might say, "I just want to be creative for a few minutes." This is the voice of your authentic self. The voice of your shadow, now speaking not in symptoms, but in clear requests. Your only job is to listen, without judgment. This practice over time rebuilds the bridge between your conscious mind and your soul. You are learning to trust yourself again. And this brings us to the final step, which answers the burning question: what do I do when I cannot leave? The final step is transformation and sovereignty. You come to understand a profound truth. You cannot always change your environment, but you can always change your relationship to it. Imagine Chloe has to attend a tense family dinner, her old silent suffering space. The old Chloe would have gone in as the shock absorber, trying to manage everyone's feelings. The new Chloe, the one who has been practicing this work, goes in with a different mission. Her mission is not to keep the peace. Her mission is to maintain her own peace. She uses a technique I call the protective bubble. Before she walks in, she takes a moment. She visualizes a warm, golden bubble of light surrounding her. This is her sacred space, her boundary. Inside this bubble, she is sovereign. She can listen to the tension without absorbing it. She can hear the passive-aggressive comments without internalizing them. She can offer compassion without offering herself as a sacrifice. She is in the room, but she is not of the room. She has learned to be the lighthouse, not the sponge. This is the ultimate freedom. It is the realization that no one can trap you in a psychological prison without your unconscious consent. The power was never out there. It was always inside you. The power to see the walls, the power to withdraw, the power to listen, and the power to stand in your own light, even in the darkest of rooms. This journey is not easy. When you start to change, the systems around you will push back. They are used to you playing your role. But every time you choose your own peace over a false peace, every time you honor your own energy, you are not just liberating yourself. You are creating a ripple effect. You are showing everyone around you what freedom looks like.
Today, we have redrawn the map of your inner world. We have moved from a place of self-blame to a place of profound self-understanding. The exhaustion and anxiety that you carried for so long, believing it was a personal flaw, we now see it for what it truly is: a symptom, a messenger, a perfectly intelligent response to living within psychological prisons that were never designed for your soul to thrive. We have named these prisons the performance theater, the silent suffering space, the self-abandonment chamber. And we have revealed that they are all part of one larger structure, a containment system for your own repressed power, your own authentic needs, your shadow. The very act of naming these places is an act of liberation, because what is named can be navigated, what is seen can be changed. We have not just admired the problem, we have laid out a practical, compassionate path forward, the regeneration protocol, a way to begin the sacred work of dismantling these inner walls. It begins with the environmental audit, the simple, courageous act of listening to your body's truth. It moves into strategic withdrawal, the art of reclaiming your energy one small, sovereign no at a time. It deepens with conscious integration and inner listening, where you learn to dialogue with the exiled parts of yourself, not as enemies, but as allies. And it culminates in transformation and sovereignty, the ultimate realization that your true freedom lies not in changing the world, but in changing your relationship to it, in becoming the lighthouse, not the sponge. This is the heart of Jungian psychology. This is the soul of shadow work. It is the journey from unconscious victimhood to conscious authorship of your own life. It is not about becoming a perfect person. It is about becoming a whole person. And there is a beautiful, powerful side effect to this work. When you heal yourself, you create a permission slip for others to do the same. When you choose to stop participating in the silent suffering space of your family, you create a tiny opening for honesty to enter. It may not be taken, it may be resisted, but the possibility is now there. When you choose to take off your mask in the performance theater at your job, you show one other person that authenticity is possible. Your healing is not a selfish act. It is a gift to the collective. It is a quiet disruption of the unconscious patterns that keep us all small. Your journey does not end here. In many ways, it has just begun. You have been handed the keys. Now comes the patient, courageous work of learning to use them day by day. There will be moments you forget, moments the old patterns pull you back in. Be gentle with yourself. This is not a race. It is a homecoming. But as you begin to walk this path, as you start to feel your own energy returning, as the fog of exhaustion begins to lift, a new and perhaps more bewildering challenge will arise. After spending your entire life driven by the need to perform, to please, to survive, what happens when that fuel source is cut off? What happens when you escape the prisons only to find yourself in a vast, silent, and empty field? Why is it that the moment of our greatest spiritual breakthrough is often followed by the death of all motivation? This profound, sacred paradox, this dark night of the soul that Jung called the nijredo, is the essential next step in our journey together. It is the gateway from healing to true purpose. And we will walk into that fertile darkness in our next conversation. For now, your work is simple. It is to take one step, to choose one of the practices we have discussed today and make it real in your life this week. Will you conduct your environmental audit, listening to your body's wisdom? Will you practice one small strategic withdrawal, reclaiming a few moments of your day? Or will you commit to the 2-minute inner check-in, rebuilding the bridge to your own soul? The audit, the withdrawal, or the listening? Choose one. To anchor your intention and to let this community know that you are on this path, share your choice in the comments below. The journey out of 1,000 miles begins with a single conscious step. Thank you for having the courage to take yours.